Okay, here's a fun little bonus section. Susan and I have a tradition in Nobleman and New Eve that I meet with the ladies in New Eve and Susan meets with the men from Nobleman. And she shares, if you were my sons, this is what I would want you to know about dating. And I meet with the ladies and say, if you were my daughters, here are the things that I wish that you knew. So here are my top 11 pieces of advice, if you were my daughters, that I feel like I would want you to know. Okay, here's the first thing. Watch to see, is he indeed placing himself under God's headship with his finances, with his future, with his friends, with his family? Pay attention to that. Is he wearing the crown, or is it clear that he's placed himself under God's lordship and God is his king? Next, if a guy tells you he's been praying about you, that's great. Take it with a grain of salt. It may be that he's been praying about you, but it's also possible he's been praying about other girls too. So don't be too careful in thinking that you're following his lead to give up you asking God, Lord, are you leading in this? God needs to confirm with the man and in your heart as well. So don't put too much stock into it if a guy says, I've been praying about you for 2 years or however long it might be. God may be leading, but I've seen several men who are convinced that God is leading, and they convince a girl that as well, and she thinks she should just go along with it. Next, if he can't control himself sexually now, with you, with pornography, with whatever other areas it is, if he can't control himself now, then what makes you think he's going to be able to control himself later? If he's unfaithful now with you, then he likely will be unfaithful later with somebody else. So when you've had 2, 3 kids and you don't look like you did when you were 20 years old, you want to know that he is a faithful man that has shown he can control himself now and is doing whatever it takes to walk in sexual purity. That doesn't mean he's going to be perfect at it, but you'll know if he's putting forth that effort. Next, don't entertain and flirt with a guy just because it feels good and you like the attention. So if you don't have any intention of dating this guy, then don't lead him on because it feels good. Just be kind to him and give him the same attention you would anybody else. I often see where guys and girls will do this and the friendship ends up being sabotaged because of that, because the guy will start falling for the girl and she's thinking, hey, I never had that intention. I just wanted your friendship, but she's drawing him in and enjoying attention that really should be reserved for a guy she's interested in dating. Okay, modesty. When it comes to modesty, it's his responsibility not to lust after you. But here's the thing. A guy can walk across campus, even a godly guy, he can walk across campus, he can go to the gym, and he can see women who are half-dressed everywhere he goes. What makes you different, and a godly man, what he's looking for, is, yes, she's pretty, but she's carrying herself with integrity, and she's not using her body and seductive clothes to try to draw him in. You just need to know, I lead young men all the time, and I've got to tell you, to a godly man that you want to attract his attention, modest is hottest. So I'm not saying you got to wear like a muumuu and some burlap sack that is completely unattractive. But I do see that that was true for me when I was, before I was dating Susan. And it's true for many of the godly young men, the ones that have the greatest character that I've seen. They're attracted to a woman who dresses nice, who cares about her appearance, but who's not dressing like she belongs in a porn flick. He can get that other places. So don't compromise yourself. Next, be careful not to daydream too much about a guy. So it's easy to get pulled in way too deep, way too fast. So I encourage you to ask yourself, am I living in the present right now? Am I in a present reality? Next, don't overanalyze every word and nonverbal to mean something deeper than it meant. Don't assume just because he asked you on a date that he wants to marry you. For some of you, that's not a problem, but for others, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Next, pay attention to the little things. Does he treat you like a lady? Does he listen to you? Does he seek to understand? Or is he always only trying to get you to understand his perspective? Does he minimize your concerns? Does he pay attention to your cautions? Does he dismiss them? Does he look out for your areas of weakness, or does he exploit those? And in conflict, is his goal to resolve and reconcile or to win? If it's to win now, it's only going to get worse as you get married. Next, this is a mouthful, so I'll say it to you a couple times. Don't initiate, don't assume, don't expect, don't manipulate, and don't fight it when the Lord is clearly leading. I'll say it again. Don't initiate, don't assume, don't expect, don't manipulate, and don't fight it when the Lord is clearly leading. Don't persuade, prod, nag, or manipulate him to propose. I see this oftentimes where a woman will have to continue to prod him to propose. If he's not willing and you don't trust him to initiate now, then he's not a guy you want to marry anyway. Otherwise, you're going to spend your whole relationship having to continue to prod him and get him to lead. Don't lead out of fear, or don't move forward out of fear and set that tone for the relationship. Learn to be a responder, not the primary initiator in the relationship. That doesn't mean you can't initiate, but if you're constantly having to initiate with him spiritually regarding the relationship, in life, then you're going to end up with another child to raise rather than a husband you're partnering with in life. Okay, don't expect him to change. If you wouldn't marry him right now, then don't spend another day in this relationship. Don't just look for the broken guy. Some of you tend to be very compassionate, and you tend to find the broken guy that you want to make whole. Again, you don't want to be a mother who's also having to raise a husband. You want a man who's going to lead and serve you, not one that you're going to have to take care of like a little boy. Okay, finally, open your life and your relationship to godly counsel. When Susan and I were dating, we decided we were going to pursue a different older couple every other week. So on one week, we would have a date with just us, and then on the next week, we would take out an older godly couple to dinner. And it was really cool because they would always buy our dinner, which we didn't expect them to do, but we started to notice that was the case. But we would ask them for advice. We would say, hey, what do you wish you would have known before you got married? And what advice would you give us before we're married? And what mistakes do you see young people make? And what are some of the best things that you've learned from walking with God over the years? Sometimes it wasn't even about relationships. It was just walking with God and advice. And we would often circle back with them and ask them, hey, just following up, thanks so much for the time. Is there anything that in hindsight that you or your wife, I would ask the husband and Susan often would ask the wife, have you guys had any thoughts since we met? And that was really helpful because you can be sure that they talked after you met and either said, ooh, I'm concerned about that guy, or man, he's great, but I don't think she's great for him, or whatever it might be. If you continue to open yourself to godly counsel, that doesn't mean you do whatever any couple says or the one who speaks the loudest, but Proverbs says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. So invite many advisors into your relationship and start taking a little bit from what this said and a little from what that said, and then weigh that before the Lord and together to see what God is saying in that. So those are my top 11 if you were my daughters. I encourage you to be content in every season, whether God brings you a husband tomorrow or he has you single the rest of your life. Either way, it's a gift to walk with Jesus as your greatest joy. Okay. So great being with you, ladies. Lord bless you.